Oh man, what a ride the past few weeks have been. I was sick, then I was away on a trip, then when I came back I pumped out that previous Indefensible video, which was on Google Stadia. And then fall allergies hit me like a truck. I never had allergies growing up. No spring, no fall, no nothing. But now that I'm a little bit older, I go outside in the fall and it feels like my head inflates and I float away. So I missed a giant chunk of the last couple of news cycles. And of all the ridiculous stuff that's happened recently, the one that sings to my heart is the closing of G4. I've spoken about this twice already. I did a Tubcast with Lilith, where we went over the history of G4. Very briefly, G4 was an American TV network focusing on video games, launching back in 2002. Being of that era, it was full of edgy humor, sex jokes, boobs, violence, puns, all the stuff that made the 90s and 2000s great. I have some memory of watching it when I was younger, though its reach in Canada was limited. G4 was eventually outclassed by the rise of the internet, like the rest of cable TV. For gamers, it became more convenient to watch a trusted YouTuber, who at the time you could assume was not bought off, because those types of sponsorships didn't exist back in like 2008, than it was to turn on the TV and hope you caught the right segment airing on G4, which might have just been paid for by advertisers anyway. G4 remained nostalgic for a lot of gamers in my age group, the same way that Nintendo Power is. A beloved piece of our youth, whose extinction was inevitable with the advancement of technology. My other video on this topic, though, was about Froskurinn's now legendary rant on the newly revived G4 YouTube channel.
Sexism in gaming. Every time G4 is brought up in various channels, even in this YouTube channel, we have the chat in front of us, I can see you, without a doubt, there will be backlash because I'm not as bangable as the previous hosts. Women do not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. Morgan Webb, Olivia Munn did not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. When you're in our DMs or on those YouTube comments or in Twitch chat right now, those reactionary threads thinking that I'm somehow ruining your current X-Play experience because you can't objectify me how you previously did to Morgan, or that I'm somehow less qualified to speak on something, but you can't quite put your finger on why, even though I'm reading the exact same script as Adam, but you have no problem with he's part of it, you're letting your unconscious biases ruin my day and you're gatekeeping the gaming space. So maybe for 2022, we be a bit nicer, a bit more self-reflective, and we enjoy the fact that people are working hard to make free content for you. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Peace.
Hey, I hope you can tell that I meant legendarily bad. That video, titled The Ethics of Irreverence, was about how mine and Frosk's generation, the millennials, grew up in a culture of irreverence. We viewed the man, the power, the structures of society as a corrupt, oppressive force, and our entire subculture was all about raging against that machine. There were no gods, no masters, and certainly no sacred cows. Everything could be made fun of. Everybody had their turn in the hot seat, and the individual was placed front and center in the pushback against the traditionalism and religiosity that we grew up in, a society that seemed ill-fitting to our sensibilities. However, as the millennials got older and millennial culture became the dominant culture, all of that edgy irreverence went out the window. After all, in their minds, people like Frosk are still fighting the man after all this time. They've got the correct politics, and if the next generation, the new young people, are being just as edgy and irreverent towards those with the correct politics like them, then they've gotta be racist, sexist, fascist, reactionary, Gamergate chuds. Every woke millennial snowflake is a 2000s era edgelord in repentance, who can't accept that just as they went through a pretty normal coming of age experience of testing the boundaries of their culture, that the next generation is now doing the same thing by taking the millennials down a peg. No, it has to be that these kids today are evil, and now you know why your parents seemed so out of touch when you were a kid. What made this story all the more interesting is that most of the time, a millennial realizing that they're turning into the very thing they once hated doesn't result in the total destruction of a network and the loss of dozens of jobs. But Froskurinn is just that special of an individual. Frosk got her start as a semi-pro League of Legends player. Instead of going full pro, she transitioned into coaching and later color commentating for League esports matches. She often claims to be the first woman who ever casted a pro League game, but there's been several Chinese women who've done it before her. She is the first to do it in English though. In 2021, she left the casting scene entirely to join up with the revived G4, and she went on her infamous rant in January of 2022. Most people who watched it were simply outraged and did exactly what Frosk asked them to do.
If you don't like it, don't watch it.
It felt like a second Gamergate, where the school bullies from your childhood who never really liked games boys, and who teased you for being a gamer, that you thought you'd left safely behind after graduation, were suddenly in positions of some authority and influence in your favorite hobby. That's not exactly accurate with Frosk, the same way that it was with someone like Zoe Quinn, because Frosk actually is a gamer. She actually knows what gamer culture is. But that made her comments even more egregious. Despite what Frosk said, the reason Olivia Munn and Morgan Webb went around flaunting their bodies on the old G4 is because they were hired to be eye candy, at least partially. Despite what Frosk said, she herself had no problem objectifying people who appeared on stage with her. Despite what Frosk said, the rest of the modern G4 was also totally cool with showing off titty streamers and insulting women's sexuality. And despite what Frosk said, she doesn't actually care about sexism in gaming. Because if she did, she would be talking about developers who behave like Harvey Weinstein, rather than the kids on voice chat telling her to get back in the kitchen. Nobody with any actual influence is ever going to talk about the real sexism in gaming, let alone any one part of the mainstream, like a G4 talking head. They know who's holding their leash. In March of 2022, G4 announced they were taking viewer feedback into account, which is probably why we saw such a radical shift from Frosk's rant to Amaranth in the ball pit. Their article announcing changes ended with a plea to please keep watching. Oh god, we've invested so much money in this, you can't stop watching us. The company was acting weirdly schizo. On the one hand, they were not actually walking back on anything Frosk said, but on the other, they were doing exactly the opposite of the rant. It seems like they wanted to have their social justice cake and eat it too, and your average gamer just wasn't having any of it. G4 limped on, hoping to put the whole shit show behind him, but viewers bled away, money dried up, and eventually, in September of 2022, G4 announced the layoffs of 20 to 30 employees. Even the president of G4 up and left for greener pastures, though we don't know if he was leaving a sinking ship or he was given the opportunity to resign after the gross mismanagement of the whole operation. It's at this point that G4 finally deleted the Froskurinn, and all of their tweets supporting the message of "Don't watch our stuff, gamers," but alas, it would prove to be too little too late. Frosk herself, flying in the face of her previously inclusive rhetoric, showed that she truly did not give a shit about anybody other than herself by posting on Twitter a picture that said, "I survived." The gall on this bitch, to be the reason G4 was tanking to the point that people lost their jobs, and then to go LOL I got mine suckers on social media. That was one slap in the face too much, even for her, and she quietly removed G4 host from her Twitter bio. It was later confirmed privately that Frosk had indeed been let go, but Frosk herself wouldn't announce it until a week later, acting like this is always how it was going to go down. And finally, to nobody's surprise, yesterday, October 16th, this letter dropped from Comcast's CEO. As you know, G4 was reintroduced last year to tap into the popularity of gaming. We invested to create the new G4 as an online and TV destination for fans to be entertained, be inspired, and connect with gaming content. Over the past several months, we worked hard to generate that interest in G4, but viewership is low, and the network has not achieved sustainable financial results. This is certainly not what we hoped for, and as a result, we've made the very difficult decision to discontinue G4's operations, effective immediately. I know this is disappointing news, and I'm disappointed too. I want to thank you and everybody else in the G4 team for the hard work and commitment to the net. Okay. I don't know how much of this was caused by Frosk's meltdown. She may actually have been what killed the network. But at the same time, did the channel really have any views before she went on her tirade? On Social Blade, you can see that on the week of their relaunch, they got 500,000 views. But after the novelty of G4's back wore off, views dropped by about half. That final small peak is where everybody tuned in to see Frosk's meltdown, and then it was all flatlined from there. Those two downward spikes of negative views are when G4 deleted the Froskurinn and then the stream VOD itself that contained it. So there does seem to be a correlation between Frosk's rant and G4's declining views, but my intuition tells me they were already headed in that direction. Frosk massively accelerated the process, but I don't think the new G4 was destined for success. Their set looked nice and their broadcast was professional, but all that shit costs money, and I have a feeling they were never making any of it back. That's not to say that highly produced YouTube content can't work nowadays. Old school YouTube had a charm to it. The bedroom feminist stuff, the angry reviewer stuff. It was all single artists, sometimes with friends helping out, like our old anime reviews. But it all felt amateur, in a welcoming way. When you see a potato camera with shitty audio, you know you're not getting somebody who was bought off. And maybe with the shift towards highly produced YouTube channels, we've lost something. At the same time, you can also absolutely tell when a highly produced video probably isn't highly produced because of corporate backing. We can use the overtly political channel examples like Crowder or Cedar, sure, but even guys like Red Letter Media and JonTron still have that same feel, despite the massive increase in production value. A highly produced G4-style gaming channel is absolutely possible, desirable even, but not with the corrupting influence of Comcast money, and not with buying random e-celebs to be your hosts. Speaking of the e-celebs, apparently Comcast didn't even tell any of these poor fucks what was going on, as Gerard found out he lost his job because the tweet went viral. It's okay, buddy, you've got a 1.5 million sub channel to fall back on, you'll be fine. You got that G Fuel sponsorship, the checkmark and pronouns money, Gerard's gonna be okay, guys. There's another YouTuber I kinda regret watching back when I was younger. But there you have it, the final pathetic whimper of G4. The progressive skin suit does not seem to take hold when YouTube's involved. They can subvert movies and comics, no problem. Video games they can do, but it's a little bit harder. But subverting a YouTuber? I don't know, man. People just stop watching. Probably the most ironic bit is Frosk's Twitter comment of, "I wish internet communities would recognize that their spaces have been infiltrated, manipulated, and hijacked by nefarious groups via meme propaganda. Just jokes, bro, until hatred becomes normalized, then becomes radicalized, then becomes a hate crime." Gamergate was a great example about how language and a cause were hijacked by bad faith actors who wanted nothing to do with gaming communities until they recognized that they could weaponize the conflict for their own agenda. This is actually a fair criticism. Milo, for example, was no gamer. He didn't give a shit about us. He simply saw an opportunity to try and grow his career, and he took it. But most importantly, right-wing grifters don't really do this anymore. Who are the new right-wing faces, explicitly using gaming and gamers while not giving a shit about the community? Point to them. They don't exist. But you can point to hundreds of left-wing subversives doing the exact same thing, and Frosk is just one of many. I can make the exact comment she did. Internet communities need to understand that their spaces have been infiltrated, manipulated, and hijacked by nefarious groups via diversity propaganda. Nobody actually believes the woke stuff until it's good that it's happening. Subversion becomes normalized. People become radicalized until it's a hate crime. And yes, there are actual documented instances of leftist hate crime against rightoids, something that I've also done a video on. It's fine if a video game has a political theme. Lots of games do. Leftist or rightist or whatever else. If you want to use your art to speak about politics, or you want to have a political plot, then go for it. The issue ultimately is when only one type of politics is allowed, where the only possible objection to that must be strawmanned, and where you're a bigot if you complain. It's the difference between Fallout New Vegas and Life is Strange. Anyway, G4 is dead, and thank God for that. I do think the internet needs a G4-like show, but without the Froskurins of the world subverting it with their politics, or the Comcast with their corporatocracy. Hell, I'll do it. Who wants to drop a couple $100,000 into my lap with no promises that I'll do what you want or even be successful? Anyone? I can promise it'll at least be better than this.
What the hell are you saying?
I want to live, Fiona Nova and Kevin Pereira.
Oh, you got my name right. Wow.
Oh, I want to live. I choose to rot in the sun rather than freeze in the darkness of the fridge.
That's actually a really healthy attitude for a monster sandwich, if you think about it. Yeah.
I'm glad you conquered the existential crisis of birth in under, 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. How mutable are our cheeses, and how strange is that clinging meat we have of love, even in the excessive oh God, what's happening? Oh God, I can feel everything! Oh, every bite 1,000 devil's tongues! What an eternity of pain! No, is this what it is to be a sandwich? Oh gosh, where's he taking me? Oh, he's eating my brain, but not the part I use for speech. Oh, there goes that part. Oh, I done getting eat. And now brain little, but feel good dying dude off Furby sandwich. I'm dead. Bye.